Jai Hind, Brigadier Hemant Mahajan. Subject today is countering China's infiltration into the Indian economy. China is busy fighting a unrestricted war with India, also called as a grey zone war with India, also called as hybrid war with India, or also called as multi-domain war with India. It is carrying out inimical action against India in almost every field. For example, they're infiltrating into our economy, they're helping the Nakshals or the Maoists in the central India, they're trying to revive the insurgency in the northeast. In addition to that, they are stopping us at all diplomatic level in United Nations. The Chinese virus, the havoc that it created with Indian economy is well known to you. They help Pakistan, they infiltrate into our neighborhood. But today, the topic that I am going to talk is about Indian economy, how the Chinese have attempted to infiltrate in the Indian economy, and more important, what actions are we taking to stop this infiltration so that we are able to counter the Chinese. So it's about only economic subversion which the Chinese have done with regard to the Indian economy. Now let us start one by one. First is, one would remember that we had tried to ban Chinese apps after Galwan. That was a good move, but what has happened now is most of the apps have again come back by other name, by changing their names. Second thing we wanted to do was, China was exporting more than 4 times of our exports to them, meaning they were using India as a market, but they were not allowing India to, let us say, export something to China. And the trade deficit was widening. This is not an economically correct thing. So what did we do? Last few years, we are trying to reduce this over dependence on China, and we are trying to decouple our economy from China. We are trying to improve on our various places from where we get our raw material, finished products, etc. But instead of situation improving, today the difference between imports and exports has only widened, meaning all the steps that we have taken have not worked well. We are going in for Atmanirbhar Bharat, we are going in for local for the world, we are going in for import substitution, we have a productive linked incentive scheme, etc. But it has still not been able to reduce the deficit of trade between India and China. Why is it important to reduce this deficit? It is simply because Chinese profit hugely from the big Indian market. This money helps them to make their armed forces more powerful, thereby increasing their aggressiveness on the border. One would remember that 16th round of talk between the Indian Corps Commander and the Chinese military leader did not result into any success. In fact, immediately after this talk, what is happening is that the Chinese fighter jets are now flying close to the LAC, which is wrong, because as per the rules, they are supposed to fly 10 miles away from the LAC. And obviously, every time a Chinese fighter jet comes up in the air, the Indian Air Force responds against it from the Indian bases, either in Chandigarh or let us say in Avantipur, etc. Now this is a cat and mouse game that they play. But today let us firstly talk about the action that Indian government has taken against Xiaomi, against Oppo, against OnePlus. They are all under Government of India scanner. What has been done is that after a very painstaking research, it was found that China was doing money laundering, and therefore a crackdown was launched against Vivo, and it was found out they had channeled nearly 7.9 billion rupees to China to escape the tax liabilities. What it simply means is that the amount that was laundered is nearly half of company's sell, which is around 1.25 trillion and since 2014, they have been channeling their funds outside. What Vivo does is they cite losses, thereby avoid paying taxes and ask for concessions from Government of India. The agencies that were raided were the properties of Vivo in India at 48 locations. They have nearly 119 bank accounts with a balance of nearly 4.6 billions, gold bars, etc. that was seized. There were a lot of forged documents that were seized. Their other things like laptop, etc. was seized. And they found out that there, one of the units in Simla, where the Chinese director had access to the government building, they were using lot of companies which had which were not known at all. So the tax evasion is being investigated by the Indian agencies like income tax, the ED, and CBI, etc. And the raids have been successful, and it has been found out that again Xiaomi was ordered to cough up $88 million as taxes between the year 2017 and 2020. What the Chinese company do is they hire crooked Indians and try and beat the Indian system by making forged bills, by making some fake bills, by also carrying out illegal trade. What illegal trade means is that generally the trade between India and China takes place in the containers which come from the sea. So in a container it is shown that while that 1 crore worth of goods are being bought from China, but the container contains 10 crore rupees of goods. Since we don't open up all the containers, exactly what is coming in the container is not known. Meaning the Chinese companies and their supporters in India pay taxes, GST, excise duty, etc. on only 1 crore, while 9 crore worth of goods come inside India as a part of illegal trade without paying any taxes. They are therefore very cheap, and the Chinese are able to sell their product very, very cheaply. So all these things need to be stopped. We are making an attempt now to stop all these activities, checking their invoices, checking their supply chains, checking up their storehouses, checking the document that they have done on their laptop, finding out the transactions that they have done on inside their banks, etc. Now, government is also trying to stop Chinese investment coming into India. One would remember that this was done immediately after the Galwan clash, in which the government decided that any investment coming from the neighboring country will not come automatically, but will be investigated and a clearance will be given. Now, just imagine, after doing this, Chinese have still managing to pump foreign direct investment into India. Now, frankly speaking, foreign direct investment from any country which comes into India is always very, very welcome. But when it is coming in sensitive, strategically sensitive fields like telecommunications, like digital media, etc., then it is not required, because that means they can spy on India. Now, if you see last 4 years, the Chinese had put up proposals, 347 proposals for foreign direct investment worth 75,000 crores. Now, out of that, only 66 have been approved, and 193 proposals which were in the critical infrastructure field have not been approved. Now, why Indian government did it? There were many reasons as to why Indian government did it. Basically, to stop predatory Chinese investment and taking over Indian companies when they are having a problem. So therefore, they tried to take over HDFC. They tried to get into many companies that was not allowed. Okay. Now, HDFC thing is well known. But now, China has also, between 2020 and 2021-22, China has made significant stakes in Zomato, Swiggy, Paytm, Big Basket, Snapdeal, Paytm Mall, etc., Ola, etc. Now, while again in transport sector the investment is okay, but other places they are not okay. Now they have gone into educational field like Baiju, Hike Messenger, Car Dekho, Quicker, etc. Now this also is a cause for suspicion. Now China is also getting into the various Indian startups, etc. Again, startups, especially in the technological sector, is very dangerous. Now, by till about 2020, 18-19, the Chinese investment was over $2 billion. But we need to be very, very careful. I'll cover up some other things that they are doing. Illegal trade is one thing that I'm talking about. The supply chains. One would remember that some time back, a company called Vedanta producing copper in Tamil Nadu was closed because of an NGO which put up a case against it in High Court of Madras, if I remember it correctly, saying that they were responsible for polluting the local area. The factory was stopped, and who benefited because of this stoppage of factory? That we started importing copper from China. Obviously, this kind of a stopping of factory by the judiciary is not called for, because can copper be not be used in the Indian market? It is required. Why should we buy it from Chinese? Maybe this company should have been told that you follow the highest standard which the copper industry follows all over the world, but let the company should have been allowed to compete. But that was not done, and this company was closed. Remember, now suddenly after the income tax department, ED, etc. got active against the Chinese phone makers, suddenly what happens? They go to the Indian court. Now today, as far as the judiciary is concerned, there are more than 3 crore judicial cases which are pending in High Court, Supreme Court, etc. Now, correctly speaking, our judiciary should ensure that these cases are resolved first, and whatever judgment they want to give, that is given. But instead of that, the Chinese complaint of Indian agencies having acted tough against them and their bank accounts should not be sealed was taken up on a priority, and then the High Court gave a judgment that that this money should not be blocked, and whatever money these companies give it to anybody, that accounting should be done to the ED. Where was the need of giving such a huge priority to the Chinese? Now, so China telecom sector, they have a huge stake. What do? We have to ensure today that with under the productive PLI, productive linked incentive, we are now trying to manufacture the handsets of smartphones inside India, but they should be not be Chinese but other companies. This way, the Chinese investment into this critical handset sector should be reduced. Not only that, Chinese accessories, Chinese other things are only increasing. Now, what we have to understand is, the moment you buy a Chinese smartphone, say for 25,000 rupees to 35, 40,000 rupees, what does it mean? The smartphone in your pocket is like your kundali, to use an Indian word. It tells you who called you, whom did you call, what bank transactions you did, what SMS you received, what WhatsApp messages you gave away, what was your profile on Facebook. Everything that is required to be known about you is known by this smartphone. So basically, by paying 30,000-40,000 rupees from your own pocket, not only you are funding the Chinese army, but you are ensuring that there's a spy which is there in your pocket, and he's observing all your activities very, very well. So this has to stop. Then thereafter, there are few other issues in which the Chinese are doing infiltration. Now, there was a report that there is a private college, a group of colleges near Delhi, in which China has started their own study centers, which is nothing but a propaganda center. They give scholarship to the Indian students who are there, send them to China. Now, the moment the students come back, obviously they are subverted, and they start writing something which suits the Chinese storyline. And what do the Chinese want to tell the Indians by subverting Indians as students, Indian professors, or Indian media, in the print media, or in the electronic media, or on the social media? What is the message that they want to give? The message they want to give is India should increase its trade with China. India should not worry about boundary dispute being resolved first. India cannot fight a battle with China. India is no match for China. Recently, one of the think tanks wrote an article saying that India will be beaten anytime by the Chinese artificial intelligence. We must understand that Chinese are no good in physical war. They were beaten up black and blue when the Galwan clash took place, in which our 20 soldiers were martyred, including Colonel Babu, the commanding officer. But we killed nearly 70 Chinese soldiers. So Chinese soldiers are soft. Chinese soldiers are not capable of fighting. They can only do propaganda warfare, information warfare, psychological warfare, perception management, etc. But or they can do non-contact warfare, which is what Russia is trying to do in the Ukraine war. But when it comes to physical combat, they just don't want it. So one should not be worried on the physical combat part of it. Indian Army is more than capable of handling it. But Chinese intrusion or the Chinese subversion of Indian economy has to be reduced. I'll give you another example. Now, some time back, the Indian market of the toys for children was flooded with China, and statistical data said that nearly 80-85% of toys which we required were imported from outside, and in that the major share of 70-80% was the Chinese toys. Now, why should you buy Chinese toys? Aren't Indian toys good enough? The Chinese toys look very attractive. The price is very less. However, they are chemically hazardous, and there had been number of accidents with the Chinese toys. Thereafter, Indian government made a determined bid to reduce the Chinese control of the Indian toy market. Productive linked incentives were given. A toy fair was done in the year 2021, which Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi himself attended. It was a meet where the manufacturers, the buyers, the supply chain people all came together. And the good part is today that the Chinese import of toys from China has now been reduced from nearly 90% to barely 25-30%. But why even 30% toys should be got into India? Even that is not required. I am sure in the days to come, the toys import will come to zero. Now one would remember that next few days we are going to have a large number of festivals in India. First is Raksha Bandhan. Last year, if I remember it correctly, during Raksha Bandhan, we purchased Rakhis with Rakhis worth 60,000 kilograms. Is there a need to buy Rakhis from China? Absolutely not. Can't we make Rakhis in India itself? Yes, we can. When the Dashera came, all the aras that you do was many of it, a lot of it was bought from China. During the Ganesh festival, again, even the Ganesh murtis came from China. All those aras, light malas, etc. came from China. During Diwali, all these things came. Now, mind you, the Indian government is trying to stop the import of unessential things from China. In fact, toys and crackers have been banned. We have put a lot of import duty on it, but still, because of illegal trade, toys, crackers, etc., still manage to come inside our country. So therefore, the role now is of the common Indian citizens who must ensure that we do not buy anything Chinese, be it toys, be it, let's say, crackers, be it anything. We should be Indian, we should be proud of being Indians, we should buy Indian and be Indian. If every common man decides to help our manufacturing industry, Indian companies, etc., then we can stop this Chinese subversion and ensure that these imports are all stopped. And if you start producing these things in India, obviously jobs will be created, our youth will get jobs, and also our very precious foreign exchange will not be wasted. So I'm sure in the days to come, all of you are going to boycott anything which is Chinese. I'll stop here. Jai Hind.